There we go. All right, so now we're going. The first thing I'm going to try to do is share with y'all a quick little video that I threw together. And it just basically it will turn into a much more polished video once let me see here and do this different way to where I can still see. It will turn into a much more polished video once I get a little more time, but this is just a little bit of footage that I've gathered so far just to kind of highlight some of the agriculture that we have here in Florida. So this, of course, is timber. In our area, we're very different than South Florida in what we grow, and we'll kind of talk about that a little later and as to how the pandemic, affected us differently than what South Florida. So timber is definitely a huge commodity here in our area. We've got about a 500,000 acres of timber here in our county alone. We also have a good amount of cotton. Any year it's going to be from 2,000 to 3,000 acres of cotton. This happens to be our only irrigated piece of cotton land right here. So we grow a lot of cotton, good, beautiful crop there to get to see. And then next we grow a lot of peanuts. And so that was a commodity that y'all are missing out on today. So we grow basically anywhere. We flip-flop 2,000 to 3,000 acres of peanuts every year. That is a peanut harvesting going on right there. That you can get a better view there of how the peanuts are dug out of the ground and flipped over. They get to dry then. It's kind of a neat operation that you kind of get to see if you're in there. There's some corn. We do grow a little bit of corn every year. Not a lot, but a little bit. Mostly people will grow it to feed their cattle. We also grow a little bit of soybeans. The price of soybeans kind of dictates how much, but anywhere from 800 to 1,000 acres, typical year. We do grow a little bit of wheat. So we have a little bit of winter wheat and some winter oats that we grow. Then we, of course, grow some cows. We've got about anywhere around 6,000 head of cattle every year. Is about what we have. We have a few horses and there was a donkey that we see. Have a little bit of that in the county, and for that we have to have hay. So there's some hay that had been cut that's drying, and there's some hay that had been rolled recently. So we have to bring in a lot of hay. In fact, our hay production is more than our cotton acreages. So we grow more hay, almost $2 million worth of hay. We also have a lot of small farms that are going to do direct to consumer marketing. So tomatoes and peppers and watermelons and things like that. And also our nice crop that we love, our strawberries. Those are delicious. So we grow a little bit of strawberries here in our area. And to grow all those veggies, we also need our beekeepers. So this is a beehives that are right outside of a small vegetable producer. So those are important. We need our pollinators, but also the honey industry. Our 2012 numbers was 770 colonies, but we probably 10 times that now. But we do all this while protecting our natural resources. That's a Blackwater River. And then that's the beach, of course. We want to protect those waters. And then the Shoal River, we want to protect all of our waters and our private lakes. And so that's Bear Lake, one of our private lakes or public lakes. So that's a little overview of agriculture here. Now we're gonna get going, and what I'll do is I'll be sharing my screen, and then we'll have Shannon talk to y'all, and I will mute myself if Shannon wants to get ready.
All right. I guess that's my introduction. So again, my name is Shannon Nixon. I am a farmer in Okaloosa County. Got a little bit of farming going on in Santa Rosa County, Florida. Uh, Started farming with my family in the 70s, wanted to be a farmer. Everybody told me I didn't need to be a farmer, but I was too dumb to realize all the challenges. So here I am 30 something years later farming on my own. And and today we're going to talk to you about wildlife damage. And if you've been on the tour with us, you've heard this every year. And it's sad to say the reason you've heard this every year is it's always a problem, and it has not gotten any better for us. So, you know, when we talk about putting these tours together, um, you know, we would like to be more entertainment driven, but we have to be agenda driven to try to get our voice out. So that's why we keep coming to you with these problems. And so if Jennifer's got some slides, some of these are antiquated, but she's got one that shows the damage survey that was done in 2009 on the crops. And you know, as I'm looking over these things can be, you know, they are subjective, because what we have is we have hot spots. I actually have farms that I farm that we have very little damage, and then I've got fields that it's almost impossible to grow a crop. So you have to understand these are averages across, you know, a lot of acres, and it shows on some of these. It'll show later. It'll show the economic impact. And this was in 2009, and I can tell you as a producer, uh, nothing has gotten cheaper since 2009 except the price we get for commodities. You know, and to give you an example, in 2009 we were hitting that $13, $14 market on soybeans, and now we're in the $8 and $9 market. So you can see there's quite a bit of a drop off in what we're receiving, and the cost of producing all of these crops has probably went up at least 20 to 30%. So, so that's why it's important that we protect our agricultural interest. And you know, you could probably survey 100 farmers in Florida, and they would have varying degrees of how important wildlife damage is. If you farm in an area where you have a lot of other farms around you, a lot of and no deer habitat, that damage kind of gets spread out, and so you know, you might not experience that much damage. But when you get out where I do a lot of farming in the Blackwater forest, in the Blackwater management area, we suffer quite a bit of, and in fact, some of these fields we're even considering if they're profitable to keep going. So that's where we're at. So hopefully we can articulate what's going on and what we think that needs to happen to help mitigate this situation. This here is a picture of an NDVI, which was taken by, I believe his name was Mario at the time, might have been Jennifer. Mario Worth. He was doing some NDVI on the field, and you can see the areas here in the middle picture that shows deer damage. And this is just an example. So if you look at the bottom of the middle picture here, hopefully you're seeing that on your screen. You can see where the vegetation is being taken out. The more red you see is where there's less foliage on the crop. So that tells you, and this is really not a bad area, because this is probably be 2 or 3 acres, but we have places that we have, you know, probably half of a field that's destroyed. One of the crops that we grow, Jennifer talked about cotton. Cotton is a very important rotational crop for us, even though right now the price of cotton is somewhat depressed, and you know, we're hoping to even break even, but we have to grow this cotton to be able to grow our peanuts, because we have to have that rotation. But cotton is probably the most vulnerable crop to deer feeding, because when the cotton comes out of the ground and it's in the cotyledon stage, when a deer takes a bite on that cotton will not recover. You have stand loss, and so you know what we're doing is we're losing way too many acres every year to deer feeding, and we plant and typically about a week cotton comes up, and from that time on it is a battle for farmers to try to protect these crops, and we'll talk about a little later on depredation permits, but so you know we can do a lot of talking about, and Jennifer's probably got a picture. If you can see on your left, well, these pictures here are deer trails, and they might be hard to see, but these are this year's peanut fields taken from the air, and you can see how much deer traffic is in these fields. You know, and with peanuts, these are all peanut fields. Peanuts sometimes are hard to see the damage because they don't really reduce the stand because peanuts grow so fast. But what they do is they go out there and they bring in a lot of disease, and they bring in a lot of you know, they will start feeding when the peanuts start getting peanuts on the bottom. They will start digging them up, and so if you just see this, and let me tell you, this damage and all of this is going on while we're out there many nights during the growing season trying to harvest them and run them off, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, it's not just deer that we're having problem with; it's hogs, feral hogs, and you know, personally, I don't have any. We haven't experienced hog damage ourselves, but people tell me that if you have hog and swine damage, that you'll wish you had deer back. Because really, when they get started in an area, the feral pigs, they do not. They're so prolific and reproducing. Their numbers can build so quickly, and they can not only devastate you know, farm fields, but they can also destroy the ecosystem. They can get in these rivers and creeks and all, and they can do damage to our waterways. And so hogs, even though we don't have a problem in our area personally, I know when you get just a few miles away from here, they can be a very, very substantial problem. So I mean, telling you about the problem is one thing, but if what we need to tell you is how we think we can fix this, and truly, this problem is a political issue. It's like everything else in life. We wish that politics were not involved. And this photo here is showing a soybean field, and if you can see, the healthy soybeans where there's no deer feeding are between 48 and 49 inches tall. If you'll look to the photograph on the right, you can see that there may be 16. I don't think they're 18 inches tall. And so probably the yield difference in these soybeans, the soybeans on the left, the 48 inch tall, you're probably looking at a 60 to 65 bushel yield potential. And the soybeans on the right, or you might be looking at 10 or 15 bushels. So you can see there's a great drop off in productivity where you have the deer feeding. So how do we rectify this situation? One thing I think what we have to do is we have to understand that the Fish and Wildlife Management, they have commissioners that set these gaming laws. And I think the grievance that most farmers feel is that we do not have a voice necessarily in this management decisions, because I can tell you, and I'm not going to get into all the specifics because every time we try to talk about it, we get confused. But I'll just simplify this whole thing and say that every time we petition them to allow hunters to harvest more deer, they've actually went in the opposite direction. And you have to understand, if you look at the number of farmers in Florida, and just in Northwest Florida versus the number of hunters, you know, we're outnumbered exponentially. So the state gathers money from selling these from hunters. And so what we need, so if it becomes a numbers and a popularity contest, the farmers are going to lose. So, that's why we need help. We need help from legislation to help protect this and to get some real teeth into this situation. Because I'll give you a history. When I started farming with my family in the 1970s, we grew soybeans and we grew corn, and we never saw a deer. Deer. If you saw a deer, it was like a big event. It was something else. I can remember seeing 2 deer in the middle of a day, and we thought we had won the lottery. But now, if I go down the road and I don't see a deer, I'm wondering what's happened. But so this problem has become exponentially worse, and I know there's a lot of factors and you got a lot of people on both sides trying to figure out. The hunters and the farmers are pitted against each other because, and we're fixing to talk about this, the depredation permits. And what that does is that causes the hunters to resent the farmers for killing their deer, like when we have to go out and harvest deer to protect our crop. What I think that the solution has to be is, and how we can do this, I don't know. I'm telling you the problem, but we've got to find a way to involve the hunters during the normal harvest season of deer to start taking out the deer, especially the does. The does in the Blackwater forest, they're almost off limits. It's like you cannot, and I can't understand that rationale. I guess they're afraid, and there is some, when you talk to some of these older people, they will tell you that these deer were brought in and they were propagated into the Blackwater forest and on Egland for the gaming. So when you understand the indigenous nature of our soils, they're not naturally fertile enough to carry the populations that the FWC, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, wants to carry numbers in these forests. So what they do, the deer look for a food source. They look for a protein source, and their best available protein source happens to be in farmers' fertilized fields. So that's why the deer are coming to the field. The deer are not in the forest. The deer are where their food supply is. So what that leaves us is the only thing that we have to mitigate this problem is the deer depredation permits. And I can tell you, it gets harder every year to get these permits. It's like, they're doing us a favor. And I don't mean to sound, sour, but this has been a chronic problem for so many years. Every year it gets harder to get these permits, and the regulations. When we get a permit, we have to apply for the permit. They send us tags. We have to call in. It's a really time-consuming event. But during the growing season, to go out for a farmer to go out himself or either get people to go out on his permit, is a very, very expensive. Because, most of the time you go out and you probably drive, our crops. So we're driving 30 and 40 miles going back and forth to fields trying to catch these deer, and the cost of ammunition and everything. So it's not just the cost of the damage itself. It is the cost of what we're having to do to try to mitigate this. And, I'd only shudder to think what would happen if we didn't go out every night. So hopefully this gives you a kind of a basic understanding, because this is a very complex problem. And I mean, we could talk about this all day, but from a farmer's perspective, I just petition anyone that's got any kind of, venue to talk with someone that has the powers, because apparently, farmers, we're a very small minority, but I sort of happen to think that we're pretty important because, one farmer goes out of business, it's not going to probably change the dynamic. you know, everything adds up, and this wildlife problem is just another problem that we have to navigate. And there are truly farms that probably are getting to the point that are not economically feasible to farm anymore just because of the wildlife. Hopefully that gives you a background, and maybe one day this thing will get solved and we can move on to a more cheerful subject on the farm tour. So if anyone has any questions, I'm not sure how this works. So if anyone has any questions, Jennifer or I or someone will try to answer it for you.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Now this is a time where if you do have questions, if you can go ahead and ask them, that would be great, because you know somebody may have the same question that you do. All right. Well, if you do have any thoughts, you know, that come to you later, you can put it in the chat, or kind of break in, raise your hand. There is a raise your hand feature there. So let us know if you have any questions, and we will go from there. Next up, I'll be speaking. Let me share my screen. They asked me to talk about crop protectants, and so I'll get started there. So crop protectants, those are basically when we're talking about crop protectants. Let me. It went back to Shannon's. Hold on a second. There we go. That's my presentation, not Shannon's. Okay, so we've got crop protectants. Crop protectants are anything we're going to use to manage our pest and protect it from any damage. So those are the pesticides that we use, the insecticides, the herbicides, fungicides, bactericides, rodenticides. All those things are what we use to protect our crops. So why do we need those? Right here we've got Palmer amaranth. That's the big weed that we're fighting right now in our row crops. It's the glyphosate resistant, and we've also found that there is a population anyway of some Dicamba resistant Palmer amaranth. That we call that the Palmer pigweed. Basically, this little guy right here, that's a young one. It will be able to grow well above the canopy of the crop. So it not only robs the crop of nutrients and water, but it will actually be able to shade out the crop and actually rob it of sunlight as well. So it's robbing the plant of what it needs to grow and yield. So that is one of our biggest yield robbers that we have in agriculture. Next, there's let me see if I can get the little pointer going and show y'all this little guy here. That is a armyworm, and armyworms will take out a field in a heartbeat. They are pretty non-discriminatory. They will eat. Right now, that what they're on right there is a soybean. They'll go into hay fields. They'll get tomatoes. They're pretty non-discriminatory. They'll eat what they find, whatever's fertilized and yummy. So we have to put out insecticides for those. Down here at the bottom of this plant, this is a tomato plant that's been infected with what we call southern blight. You can kind of see the white, kind of looks like hairy there with those little mustard seeds. Those are the little spore sacs. So that's a fungal disease that'll take out that whole plant right there. Won't be able to yield. So why we need pesticides is to protect against the weeds, the insects, and the fungal infections that rob our crops of their yield. But pesticides are under fire, right? We know we're living in a very chemophobic society. Everybody's afraid of chemicals. We're living in a very litigious society where everybody wants to sue everybody. And that leaves us with courts making decisions on very scientific matters. So in this day and age, we need decision makers to be very informed so that they can make good scientific decisions and not fall into making poor decisions. So our headlines, these are pulled from yesterday, some of the headlines. We've got Mexico proposing a ban on glyphosate. Will other countries follow suit? EPA is trying to push another weed killer that's going to be an alternative to glyphosate since the war on glyphosate is happening. We have here the ban on Dicamba. The courts decided that the ban can stand. And then we've got this, and I think even our farmers didn't know that this was being pushed through our system right now, but we have the Protect America's Children from Toxic Pesticides Act of 2020 that wants to overhaul EPA's regulation of pesticides completely. So a lot of kind of scary things going on that people that, you know, not saying anything. I'm not going to go and try to practice law. And so I don't think lawyers should go and try to practice agriculture or tell us what we should be doing. A little humor in it, though. You see that anybody seen the Google University degrees, so they get to be, let's see, having mastered the technique of Google searching until finding one hit that confirms what he or she already believes is hereby awarded this diploma and declare an expert on everything with all rights, honors, and ridicule pertaining to therefore. So we don't want people to have a Google degree. We want them to go and ask the experts and trust the experts. And the experts in this case are farmers and those in the ag industry. So science should guide our pesticide decisions. We need agriculture to be a profitable profession. We need farmers to profit from growing our food, because if we don't, that's not a sustainable system. We do also need to protect our environment, and we need to be food secure. That's what's going to lead us to sustainability. So you see here, we've got our economics here, we've got our environment here, we've got our social here. Where it meets in the middle, that's sustainability, and that's where we need to be. But it needs to be all three. We can't move, lean to one side or the other, then we wouldn't be sustainable and profitable. So a little bit about, I said, glyphosate's under attack. So we talked about this last year at the farm tour. I'm sure all of you remember it that were there. It is a probable carcinogen, or it's labeled that way by IARC. It's labeled a 2A. Other 2As are diazinon, which is a insecticide, malathion insecticide, acrylamide, which is actually made when you do things like fry French fries. The French fries will accumulate acrylamide, and then biomass fuel. So those are listed as 2As, but one step above a 2A is a 1, and that's known carcinogens. And for that, we've got processed meats like bacon, solar radiation, tobacco, oral contraceptives, and alcoholic beverages. And then, so those are known carcinogens that people aren't trying to ban. Nobody's trying to ban alcoholic beverages. In fact, that was deemed essential during the height of the pandemic when we were shut down. The alcohol stores were not shut down because they were deemed essential. But we're trying to ban glyphosate. And we've got here the LD50s of different chemicals showing that it's not highly carcinogenic, but it's also not something that's highly acutely toxic to you. Caffeine is more toxic to you than glyphosate. So the larger the number, the less toxic. Table salt, it's actually even less acutely toxic than table salt, meaning you would have to ingest more glyphosate than table salt to see an effect. Now, dicamba, the dicamba thing is it's a new problem that we're seeing. Basically companies went together and inserted a gene into our genetically modified crops to be resistant to dicamba. And those companies came back through and made low volatility formulations. Volatility means how much that chemical will drift from crop to crop. So they made low volatility formulations that were developed specifically for use in those bioengineered crops. Now, we for years have had high volatility formulations that are used in yards, pastures, hayfields, etc. Those are still in use. The courts only stopped the use of the low volatility formulations that are used on the genetically modified crops. We can still use, in fact, a few months ago, I put down the high volatility formulation in my pasture. So I can still today go out and put out the high volatility formulation in my pasture. But the courts have stopped the use of the low volatility formulations in those genetically modified crops. Now, what we did that for was because we were seeing things like glyphosate resistant pigweed or other glyphosate resistant weeds in our GMO crops, and we needed something else to battle those. And so our alternative, what we went to, was dicamba. And so now the courts have taken that off of out of our toolbox to use, and science was not a part of that court battle, as you can see, if they've left the high volatility formulation in use. And so the new legislation that's coming, I welcome if they want to overhaul the EPA regulations of pesticides. I think maybe some things need to be changed in that, but the new legislation needs to be based on science. And we need support from both the conventional industry and as well as the organic industry to actually support the new legislation, because right now it's the organic industry that's pushing it, and people want to say the organic industry is all about being healthier for you, but it's not. Any industry is going to be about making money and gaining market share, and that's what the organic industry has been trying to do, is gain market share. Now, I don't have anything against organic producers, but trying to hide behind the facade of doing what's healthier for you or what's better for you. No, they're about making money, and they're about gaining market share. And so both the conventional industry that uses conventional pesticides and the organic industry that uses organic pesticides need to be at the table if any new legislation is going to go through affecting our pesticides. And I will say that is at the federal level. So those of you that are federal, look into that new legislation. All right, and so questions, we'll end with this. Ask farmers and ranchers, not Google, not celebrities, and also not your neighbor that has one chicken in their backyard. And also be aware of any false information. When I Google searched, or I Googled news relating to glyphosate and relating to dicamba and pesticides, you get a lot of false information that pops up really at the top of the search, and you have to sift through really to find the real scientific information. So if you have questions on pesticides or farming, ask a farmer or somebody in the ag industry. Don't ask Google, and don't pay attention to celebrities. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'll field questions. All right, so no questions yet. Well, we'll get Susan's presentation up on kind of how we managed during the pandemic. Let's see here, we got somebody in the chat. Okay, that's all right. I'll pull that up. I'll pull up the bill number for the proposed legislation. right, Sue.
Okay, everybody, I'm Susan Hawley again, and we're going to go through Florida agriculture. In Florida, we have agriculture that's a $160 billion industry, and we employ more than 1.6 million jobs with that. But in 2020, we got through a curveball in March with coronavirus, or COVID-19, as we are calling it. And that threw our farms a curveball, a very big curveball. Some of the headlines in April were Florida's agriculture industry hurting and coronavirus outbreak. COVID-19 curdles dairy supply chain, forcing Florida farmers to dump excess milk. Dump milk, smash eggs, plowed vegetables, food waste of the pandemic. Our farmers was not prepared for that, nor was our state. Lots of farms had to dump milk, smash the eggs, plow vegetables under. We have farms in South Florida that was plowing under 4 million pounds of cabbage because of the chain supply was broke. When the virus broke out in Florida, our governor shut down the state of Florida, which shut down our farmers getting food to the restaurants, the theme parks, the cruise ships, to the schools. Lots of dairy supply milk to our schools and fresh farm vegetables to our schools. And when all these businesses and industries shut down, that took a link out of our chain and stopped the process of getting our food to the farmers. So the next slide, Jennifer, would be our response, what Florida did. Florida FDACS of Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services set up a growers list where farmers could sell directly to the public. Now for the small farms, that was a plus because we could do that easily, but for the bigger farmers that sold to out of state or the theme parks and restaurants, again, they could not off 4 million pounds of cabbage at one time. So FDACS did set up a farmers list for roadside stands near their farms, and they were able to sell their produce to the consumer one-on-one. Many of our farmers are in this area had Facebook pages, and we were be able to communicate with our consumers and also connect with them at the market. Here in Crestview, we have a local market, and also in the south end of Okaloosa County near the fairgrounds, we have another market down there. So we didn't see a whole lot of disruption in this part of the panhandle for the smaller farmers. Not speaking for any of the bigger farmers in this area, just the small vegetable farmer myself, so I'm speaking for them. Florida farmers, they were faced with difficulties of destroying or dumping their dairy products. And so USDA announced the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, and that was a response to the national emergency, and they supported the farmers and ranchers with some money to be able to offset the cost and the loss of their food programs. The Food Assistance Program is still accepting applications. They have extended the deadline to September 11th, 2020. So if you have not submitted an application, or you know a farmer that would qualify, have them get with their local farm agency office, and they will help them with that. It is relief to producers who face price declines and additional marketing costs due to the virus. You can also apply online if you just, you can Google it, and they will, you can apply online in the office in your county that you have all your farm records with. Okay, what did we learn from this? We need to be food secure. We didn't have a plan. Florida needs to make sure we have a plan if this ever occurs again. Americans depend on American grown food and fibers. Cotton, soybeans, corn, peanuts. A break in the supply chain can disrupt an entire industry. Just like going from farmer to your restaurant to out of state, when something shuts down, We need a plan on where farmers can get their product to without having it being destroyed in the field. Farmers still have bills to pay. Even though their crop was destroyed, they have insurance. Insurance doesn't cover it all. They still have a lot of bills to pay, and they will probably be paying for this for a very long time with low interest SBA loans. The only way to get around it is to go in debt, and farmers are rarely out of debt anymore. One plant that shuts down can cause price increases and shortages in the market. Look at our beef plants that shut down. That forced the market prices to go up in the grocery store. I mean, steaks were $10, $12, $14 a pound, yet our farmer is selling the cow for less than $1 a pound. So as they go up in the store, the grocery stores are making money, but the farmer is not. The farmer is taking a big cut and a big loss in this. Agriculture depends on other industries to stay alive, as well as those industries depending on agriculture. So we need to help them, they help us. If we all work together, we can get through this together without breaking a link in the supply chain. Okay. Agriculture is an essential industry. The whole supply chain from farm to end user is essential. Anything goes from the farm, we go to the farmer's market, goes to the grocery store, goes to schools, the theme parks. So if we cannot get it from one to the other, many people will go without. In this area, direct to consumer, we have the farmers markets here in both ends of our county. Jennifer, change the slide, please. There you go. These pictures are from our South End Farmers Market, and the meat is from a local farmer in the Panhandle here. We were able to take our stuff and go down there and be one-on-one with the consumer, because the grocery stores couldn't get anything in. They were coming to us. So we wasn't in as bad a shape as the bigger farmers were, but that doesn't mean that it could happen to us also. People were scared to get out and about. So it was a rocky start for our farmers market in April when they shut down our state. We didn't have a lot of people coming. Our Florida Nutrition Program checks that come from the WIC participants was not mailed out on time, are sent to the WIC offices for the participants to pick up. They were mailed out at the end of June, July. They only have till like the middle of October to use these checks. And we don't know how many were mailed out. We know there was just a small percentage that was mailed to each county that participates in the Farmers Market program. So some people have not gotten to participate with their WIC checks this year. So we're hoping that this virus will disappear and we can get back to some normalcy maybe next year with this. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I'll just add in there that there was a lot of debate on keeping the farmers markets open or closing them, and so I was very, very happy that the county supported our decision to keep them open, because it ended up that a lot of our local people couldn't find what they wanted in the grocery stores and had to come to the farmers markets to get them. Another comment is on those farmers market nutrition program checks. When you miss our peak season, because we have missed our peak season of a growing season, and we've kind of are going into a season where it's kind of hit or miss on what you're going to have vegetable wise at the farmers markets. You know, the WIC checks going out late kind of did impact not only the recipients, but also the farmers, in that they're not going to be able to redeem as many of those checks because of the timing. And so our farmers, when they had their peak amount of produce at the market, the checks weren't there. And so it kind of, you know, now moving into October, I'll tell you what happens is the recipients that receive the checks are going to go in the end of September, first part of October, and try to cash those in, and we're not going to have very much produce at the markets when they're wanting to try to spend those checks. So you know, that'll be the biggest way that the pandemic has negatively affected our growers. You know, there were a lot of people though changing from buying at the grocery store to buying from the farmers markets though. So that was a positive. Do we have any questions on?
I have one more comment.
Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think.
Okay. You know, one thing I'd like to add to the coronavirus pandemic, how it has affected agriculture, and this is probably something that's not as easily seen. I know as we're getting ready to harvest our crops and keeping our machinery all going, what we're running into is parts, supplies, and things that we consume to be able to harvest and to do the day-to-day activities are being, you know, I'll give you an example. The peanut blades that we need to plow up our peanuts, they're in very short supply because a lot of these products we get come from foreign countries like India. And in fact, there's some of these factories never even opened up to produce blades. So, and it's not just that, it's electronic parts. And I think what we have to realize too, our food supply is dependent upon a lot of things. It's not just the farmer getting it to the market. You have to have people in these factories that produce and process this stuff, these meats and all. And when there's a disruption, sometimes what we do is we're short-sighted. What we think is by shutting a factory down to protect people, in essence, creates another situation. So hopefully people can be cognitive of there's always a fallout when you shut something down in the food supply chain. And whatever the weakest link in that system, when it breaks, the whole system fails. So that's why you had all of this stuff in South Florida and across the country being dumped, because the venue for it to be used in a timely fashion. So people don't realize when you're harvesting vegetables, it has to be processed within a few days or hours. When there's no one to process it, you lose that product. So I think we need to be very cognitive going forward with this pandemic, that there is fallout when we just shut things down, and hopefully that will not happen again.
Yeah, I think Jennifer, you have a good kind of question there. Is how it's yet to be seen what the hurricane is gonna do. I think we're dealing with across the United States, well, across the world, where we're still struggling with kind of recovering from all the pandemic and kind of trying to get things back going. And yeah, it could interrupt supplies coming in from that area. It could divert supplies to that area. And then definitely, gosh, the gas and oil refineries, you know, we're going to see some effects because, you know, agriculture is not an industry, you know, in a little capsule on its own. We depend on the gas and oil refineries. We depend on, I mean, even computer chips to keep the computers in the cabs of the tractors running right. So it's widespread. So, you know, if the oil industry is affected, that definitely affects the farmers. It affects it just, you know, the running the machinery, but also gas and oil refineries. That actually affects our fertilizer prices. And so when the gas prices go up, our fertilizer prices go up. So, you know, it definitely will have an impact on us. It's yet to be seen, I think, how big of an impact it will have. But after witnessing Hurricane Michael, I pray that those people are able to recover quickly and hopefully didn't suffer the widespread damage that Michael unleashed on Florida and Georgia. So Mike says that surprisingly crude oil prices were down today. Yeah, that's because the estimates of damage hadn't come in. Yeah, that's the same as the corn laying on the ground in Iowa. We'll see the full impact of that when they go to try to harvesting it. So, definitely have learned, you know, we're not in a bubble here. Agriculture isn't in their own little world and own little bubble. We're definitely affected. So if we got, I did want to give Ronnie a few minutes to talk about something else that affects our extension. So if Ronnie wants to say a few words.
Yeah, I just wanted to update everybody. In the years past, we have applied for a grant that goes to FDACS for a facility in the south end of the county, and we are still applying for that. Last year, unfortunately, we were not awarded that grant, but we are in the process of submitting that. We have a deadline of October the 1st. For those that are not familiar with it, we have filled out an FDACS grant for a facility to promote agriculture. It will go next to the farmers market that's currently in the Fort Walton Beach area, and it will replace what we have as a annex in the southern part of the county. And that'll be a big deal. That'll help us reach different clientele in the south part of the county. That'll be promoting agriculture, the farmers market, 4-H, and it'll be, hopefully, if we receive that grant, the full funding or enough to put a whole facility where we can have meetings and do a lot with that. So we ask for your support. You've supported us in the past. Just continue to support us. We know that it's going to be a tough year this year, but we want to keep applying. We have great support from our county commissioners here in Okaloosa County. We have a liaison that has been to Tallahassee for us. So hopefully we can get that done, and we'll eventually get it. We're going to keep trying every year until we're awarded that grant. So big things coming for the new annex, hopefully.
Yes, hopefully we can, if we can have a better year legislatively, budget-wise, that would be great. So I wanted to let everybody know the two bills are, you know, the Senate and the House. It's HR 7940 for the Protect America's Children from Toxic Pesticides Act, and then it's S4406. And the title is Protect America's Children from Toxic Pesticides Act of 2020. So if y'all look into that, that's definitely something that I wasn't even aware of until I started looking into it. It's definitely something that our Farm Bureau needs to jump in on and make a statement. I haven't seen a statement from Farm Bureau yet on that. So definitely something we need to be watching. And like I said, if our legislators or aides or anyone in that process has questions, ask the farmers, ask for Farm Bureau for their statement on it, because that will give you the farmers' viewpoint and opinion on what's going on. We had some people join us while we were going, and I didn't stop, so I'd like to introduce those that joined us. We've got Mike Goodchild, CED in Walton County. You want to say hello, Mike?
Can you hear me, Jennifer?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I was on another website, but yeah, I just caught the last part of it. And of course, I agreed with everybody. What Jennifer was saying about farmers market and stuff. We're sort of in between growing seasons, and I did enjoy the presentations.
Well, thank you for joining.
Good job.
And I think we've got Cal Strauss from FSA. He joined us if he wants to say hello.
Good morning to everyone. Just to touch base on what Susan had said about CFAP, please encourage all producers, cattle, vegetables, row croppers to to give us a call and schedule an appointment if they hadn't already. You know, we need to reach out and touch as many as the producers as we can in the area. Appreciate y'all giving me the invite to participate with y'all.
All right, thank you, Cal. We've got also who else? We've got John Hofstad with the county. Maybe he stepped away for a minute, but we're happy to have our county administrator sit in. I have someone listed as Corby's iPad, thinking they probably used, like I did for Shannon, used somebody else's device.
Hi, this is Trey Esri. I'm the agency manager for Farm Bureau in Santa Rosa County.
Oh, nice to have you on, Trey. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I think I got everybody. Now, our family and consumer science agent for Okaloosa and Walton County, she jumped on but had to jump off in between different meetings. That's Jill Brislowski, but we're happy to have her. We actually have also roped her into the Okaloosa County Farm Bureau Women's Committee to help support agriculture, because she is a farm-raised girl, grew up on a couple 1,000-acre farm in upstate New York. So we were happy to have her join us as well for a few minutes. And with that, are there any more questions that we can answer? We definitely want this to be a interactive experience. And I will say, I did ask how we could ship y'all bull peanuts. So I did try to get y'all the bull peanuts, but Shannon said he didn't know how to ship them.
Send you those instructions, Jennifer.
Do that. We'll start sending them out to everybody. I know that Kevin, Doug Broxton's aide, Kevin, had asked us about shipping, how we were gonna do that. So
Jennifer, don't forget that good barbecue that we had last year. We can't ship it either.
yeah, we can't. Yeah, we can't ship that either. So maybe next year, hopefully, we'll be back to doing this face to face. But hopefully, this was a good alternative. This was actually our plan. Like Z, we had planned on trying to be out in the field, but then it was forecast for rain. It doesn't look like we got the rain that we were supposed to get, but we kind of went to plan C and did it via the computer completely. So hopefully next year we'll get to be in person, because I tell you, this was a lot harder to put together on virtual means than what our normal face-to-face thing is. So we can get you handouts, and what I'll probably do is send that to y'all. That way you can have copies of presentations, copies of some talking points on the different things that we've talked about, and that way you'll have those things handy. And if there are any, if you need any further resources, then you can reach out to us and we can get those to you.
Also, real quick, most of you have my contact information, because I'm usually the one who sends you the invites and things. If you ever have questions and you don't know who to ask at Farm Bureau, you can always send me a message and I will get you to the right person at the home office that can answer the questions for you. If you ever want to know if we have any printouts or handouts or information on things, and you don't have Jennifer's contact or know who at the extension to ask, feel free to message me, call me. They will, most of you should have my cell phone number in the emails that I've sent you. If not, the girls here at the office will definitely put you through to me, and I'll be glad to get you to whoever you need to be with at the extension or at Farm Bureau at the home office.
And that goes to if you wanted more information about the assistance program, we can get you in touch with Cal and the FSA office, or we can get you in touch with the FSA office that's in the county that you're working with the farmer in. So any of that we can help with. That's what we're here for. All right, with that, it looks like we're I'll just let everybody know he's never had Okaloosa County boiled peanuts, so we need to fix that, huh? I really did think about bringing in a bag and eating them, but I thought that would be just mean. So let's see. Oh yes, definitely. We need to make sure that they join us for next year, and hopefully we can be face to face and have those boiled peanuts and actually get to see some things. We were hoping to be able to take you. Shannon's got a couple of fields that have just a great amount of deer damage this year. We were hoping to take you out there, and then we've got some weed issues in our county that we would like to take you to see and be able to talk with when I talked about the crop protection. And we wanted to actually take you to the farmers market because it's going today. We've got farmers selling produce down there today, and we wanted to actually be able to get to go visit that. And that would be the location where we were having our or hope to have our new office built. So hopefully next year we'll be back face to face, get to have some new faces join us and get to see some real agriculture. All right, Keith, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we send everybody to lunch?
I just want to thank again the staff and UFIFAS and Pete, your folks that's really worked hard on this for us, and the joint effort that we have between the Okaloosa County Farm Bureau and all the farm bureaus, as well as the UFIFAS. I think it works good for all of us, and we appreciate it. Appreciate everybody that joined. And by means, if you have questions on issues that we have spoke on today, be sure and reach out to some of us. And thanks again for joining us.
All right, with that, we'll say have a happy rest of the day and a good weekend, and enjoy your lunch. And remember, it's Florida agriculture that helped put that food on that plate.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.